Hello everybody and welcome back to Path of Exile 2. Instead of doing a map for this episode, I wanted to kind of throw out an idea that I had for the whole evasion slash deflection thing that we've been struggling with for this character. Now obviously this would require this information getting to the developers somehow, and I'm way too small of a channel to actually make that happen, but I want to throw it out there and hopefully it catches on and gets some steam or whatever. So here's what here's the issue, and then I'll give you my solution. My evasion by itself is just, it's a lackluster stat, because while it does, if you can get it high enough, it does make it to where you rarely get hit. The problem is that when you do get hit by something very big, you don't have any armor or real damage reduction to prevent getting one-shot by things, and sometimes even relatively smaller things that other builds would be able to tank pretty easily. Now, the idea of deflection, at least as far as I can tell, seems to be intended to kind of mitigate that somewhat. The problem is that it still has an RNG element to it. So if you get really unlucky and it gets past your chance to evade, and then it also gets past your chance to deflect, it's basically as if you had no deflection in the first place, which makes evasion and deflection just really dangerous to use, and it makes it really hard to, utilize it in any kind of way that outside of melee. So you've seen for this character, we're basically just doing a range build here, because if I get in close, I'm just gonna get clobbered, because I even with like almost 3,000 hit points, even with almost 3,000 hit points worth of life and energy shield, I take so much damage because it's just, I'm maxed out on resistances. Like, I even got a little bit of chaos damage. And my evasion rating, I had that at like a 50 some odd % evasion rating, and I had my deflection up to like a 60 something deflection, a chance to deflect. And it's just the way that it's designed, there's just so many big hits that come in that you're going to regularly take big hits, and you have no damage mitigation outside of, just your resistances, and that's just not enough. So my solution to the problem seems to, or at least the solution that's popped into my head, the issue that we have is the RNG problem. The RNG part of all of this, for the evasion needs to continue to work the way that it does. I think evasion as it exists right now, the concept of it makes sense. I think they need to tweak the formula a little bit to make this number that you have a little bit more true to life, rather than it being, because from what I understand, from what I heard from another creator, evasion works on a curve. So the more you evade, the less effective it becomes, and you're eventually going to get hit by something. Like that's the way it was explained in the video. So I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I would rather just have 35% of all hits just miss me, period. Right? And if I get lucky, I get lucky, and if I get unlucky, I get unlucky. But I don't know. Maybe change it to something like a counter where 35% of all hits will miss you, guaranteed. Something like that. I don't know. That's one adjustment that could be made to make evasion a little bit less of an up and down thing that happens all the time. And then the way we can fix deflection is completely remove the estimated chance to deflect, make deflection 100% of the time, and then make the damage prevented by deflection dependent on the amount of incoming damage. Right? So smaller hits will have much less, what am I trying to get to here? Smaller hits will have much less of an effect. And then bigger hits will it'll scale up as bigger hits come in. So what are we trying to get to here? We're not trying to make it to where our character never takes any damage, because that would be overpowered and kind of crazy. And while I understand the logical way to think about deflection is, well, you're able to dodge, or you're able to deflect all of these little hits, and the big hit comes in and slams you. So it does need to have some kind of an effect on the little hits to, really reduce the mobs coming in and just beating the crap out of you. You need to be able to deflect most of those hits, right? But when a big hit comes in, that's where you really need the deflection to not have an RNG aspect to it. It needs to seriously deflect those big hits. So maybe we leave the estimated chance to deflect. Maybe the deflect itself, the chance to deflect is inversely proportional to the percentage of your life or the amount of damage or something like that. So you have a higher chance to deflect bigger hits, and that kind of makes sense because as the character you would see the big hit incoming and you'd be able to kind of deflect it instinctively, right? You would have a reaction to it. And then smaller hits are going to come in more because there's usually a bunch more of them coming in. They're much faster. They're much like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking something along the lines of that. Your evasion rating is just a flat evasion rating, and your chance to evade is just, you know, I'm going to evade 30%, 35% of my attacks. And then for deflection, smaller hits are going to get through more because you're going to assume that those are going to be like a bunch of little dudes coming in. You're going to have a harder time deflecting those smaller hits because there's a bunch more of them coming in. And then bigger, badder bashing blows will have a much higher chance to deflect because those are generally going to be big wind-up abilities or big swings or something like that, or a big like erupting ability of some kind. You're going to be able to kind of prepare yourself for that and get the deflection in. And so, you know, bigger hits have a much higher chance to deflect, whereas smaller hits are going to get through a lot more and you're going to deflect fewer of those. But your evasion still stays the same, so you can evade as much as you can. I think that solution would kind of would drastically help out with people who want to play agility-based evasion deflection builds like this monk that I'm trying to build. Because the biggest issue that I end up having is my evasion doesn't allow me to evade enough. And then my deflection, when it works, generally saves me, but it doesn't work enough even when I have like a 60% chance to evade, or deflect, sorry. So I think something like that, a flat evasion that is just a flat evasion. It doesn't have any kind of curve to it, so that you know you can spike that up as much as you can to make sure that the majority of the attacks coming in are just going to miss you. And then deflection itself has a higher chance of saving you when there's a one-shot thing that comes in. Like, it needs to be something where you can get it up to like 95 or 100% so that you can guarantee that some big one-shot isn't going to get you. And maybe they could add, like, I know they don't want to make it overpowered to where you know, you're always relying on that. You still want to be able to move around. So maybe they could have a sliding scale or something like that. If you deflect a big hit, or it has some kind of thing where based on the amount of damage that you've actually deflected in the last X number of seconds, your chance to deflect goes down, right? So it could be a moving scale kind of thing so that it's not just super overpowered, but it's still something that you can rely on so that when the odd one-shot, typical one-shot thing lands, your deflection comes in and saves you. But if you're not paying attention and you get hit by like 2 or 3 one-shot abilities in a row, well then you deserve to die and the deflection doesn't save you. Something like that. I'm sure they could sit down and figure out a formula for that, but I think that's the solution. Flat evasion so that you can rely on a certain number of hits not landing on you, and then the ones that do make it through, bigger hits have a higher chance of deflecting. Smaller hits, those are probably going to get through, and you're going to have to dodge roll around a little bit to get out of the mob when it gets you. Something like that. So hopefully that makes sense. I know I babble on a little bit, but I kind of had to work through the process of it through the video, and I think the ending state of that is probably pretty good. So thanks for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Join as a member for early access to videos, or just leave a tip with the thanks button if you'd like. I also have PayPal and Patreon links for those of you who would like to contribute to the channel that way. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.